This sure beats the other thing. Okay, I got the RetroEngine Sigma, and it took me about 2 days to get it set up and working, but I finally got it working. I got MAME working, the arcade games. I was playing Renegade. My primary reason of getting the RetroEngine Sigma was to have an easier MAME experience, because to this day, I still haven't got MAME to fully work on my PC. When I saw this option was there and it had MAME, I was like, oh, maybe they made it a little bit easier, a little bit streamlined, and they did. Not all my games worked. Like, I couldn't play Ninja Turtles, but other games, like, well, the primary game I wanted to play, Renegade, that worked. That X-Men game where you could be Wolverine and chop people up, that one worked. Most of the games I tried worked. Actually, I'd say about 75% worked. 25% didn't. A couple of important ones, like Double Dragon, didn't work, but it could be my ROM. I'm not going to blame the system. It could be that I have a bad ROM file, or maybe I need to add those CHK files or whatever that, MAME is crazy, but that's why I got it. I wanted to play MAME. A lot of the MAME games did work. Was it hard to set up? Hard is a relative term. It was involved to set up. Because one, I had to read the packet. To start the setup, connect the HDMI cable to your TV and the RetroEngine and connect one of the wired controllers that came with the system before finally connecting the power supply. That base operating system that came with the machine, I don't know what they were thinking with that. It's like they took Retro Orange Pi and then made it even more complicated. The RetroEngine Sigma had high expectations based on them saying that it was an easy plug-and-play emulation platform, something to that effect. Had they not made it sound like that, it had said that it was a easy-to-use plug-and-play gaming system for emulation. And it's true, but it's not true. So by now you already know about the RetroEngine Sigma, the background, and all that. You want to know, does it work? How hard is it? It took me about 2 days to get it up and running. Once you get it up and running, everything's great. It's just getting there from the beginning to it actually working right is the pain. But it's a good learning experience. Now, I don't really have 2 days to spend on this. Luckily, I was on vacation. I much would have rather spend my vacation on other things than trying to get a retro gaming platform working, but since I had backed it and waited a year for it, I was determined to play some games. So you want to know, does MAME work? Yes. Do all the gaming systems work? So far, most of the ones I've tried actually do work. All right, so here's the contents of this RetroEngine package. We got the actual unit itself, which has these two USB ports, a power port, some kind of, I don't know if that's a port or not. Feels like something could go in there. HDMI port, and then some kind of, it says USB OTG expansion. So there's that. It's pretty light. It's neat to think that this was made on a 3D printer. There's two buttons here. I'm not sure where the power button is. I don't know how any of this works yet. Came with an HDMI cable, power adapter. This is the, I guess this is the RetroEngine like advanced controller. It's kind of like a PlayStation controller. Here's the one that looks like the Genesis controller. This one feels cheapy. This one feels well made. I thought I had ordered a Bluetooth controller, but maybe I didn't. We have these accessories in here. It's 4 pieces. That looks like a Bluetooth kind of thing. I don't know what they all are yet. There's like a memory card in there. Memory card reader. So we'll see what all that is. Came with like some kind of quick start guide here. A link to their website to download their instructions. So yes, it is a pain to get to work, but once you get it all up and running, it's fine. It's just getting from the beginning to it actually working is the tough part for the novice. But if you're doing emulation, you kind of got to know a little bit of something to make that work. Because emulation's not that straightforward on purpose. So what I had to do was first I had to reformat it with Retro Orange Pi. So I'm reimaging it with Retro Orange Pi Lite. So I got the file, I downloaded it from their website here. It says it's 4.8 gigs. It automatically somehow knows your chip, and now I'm going to flash it. This is about the third time I've done this today because my start button stops working all the time. So when it reconfigures or when it reflashes, I'm going to try to configure as many controllers as I can right off the bat. Because without the start button, you can't restart you can't shut it down, you can't do a lot of stuff. This has been a problem on both the stock operating system as well as the RetroOrange Pi Lite. Here goes a flash. This thing takes a while. I'm not going to tape the whole thing. First it like applies everything to it and then it has to finalize it. And then that took away that whole ridiculous Wi-Fi thing that you have to do. I'm not too familiar with RetroPie or RetroOrange Pi or that much with Linux other than I've used it over the years. And then obviously I had to add like 32 gigs of ROMs to it. Dreamcast does require a BIOS update, and there's a chart on the RetroEngine Sigma website that lists which systems require a little BIOS file, and that's just a little file. Once I got it all up and running, it's been good. As far as MAME goes, yeah, I was using MAME. That was my primary reason of getting this, was to try out MAME. That's the arcade games. Super Nintendo worked, Nintendo worked, Genesis worked, Master System worked, TurboGrafx 16 worked, Game Boy worked, Game Boy Color worked, Game Boy Advance worked, Game Gear worked. I didn't test PSP, I didn't test PlayStation, I didn't test Apple II or Vectrex. But so far everything worked, and anything that didn't work, it looked like if I just tweaked it a little bit, it would work. So one thing I noticed from taking video originally versus after I reformatted it with the RetroOrange Pi Lite is that a lot of the emulators aren't there. I remember there was an IBM emulator, and I don't see one now. So I'm going to show you what's there afterwards. Amiga, Apple II, Atari 2600, Dreamcast, Game Gear, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Kodi, which is not a game system, it's like a media center, MAME, Sega Master System, Sega Mega Drive, which is Genesis, Nintendo 64, and if you do Nintendo 64, make sure you unzip. It doesn't recognize zip files. Neo Geo. Now, not a single Neo Geo game I had worked correctly, so you may have to tweak Neo Geo a bit, maybe a BIOS update, not sure. NES, the original, that were fine. TurboGrafx 16, fine. Ports, not even sure what that is. I think these are, oh yeah, it comes with like 13 games. Some of them are like Zelda remake games. Hey, where'd they go? Yeah, Zelda Mystery of Solaris. So there's like homebrew Zelda games on here, and some other stuff. We got PSP, PlayStation. I haven't tried PlayStation. RetroPie. What's on RetroPie? I think these are like some homebrew games as well. Scum VM, no idea what that is. Super Nintendo, and yeah, an Amiga. So there's 22 systems showing. There should be, I think, 40. There's a way to get them all back in. And like I said, most of them are ones that you never use, like Vectrex and IBM and a couple others. So just keep an eye out for that. The issue most people are having is that it's a little bit involved to get set up. I don't want to say it's difficult, because most of the work is done for you with that etcher program, with the RetroOrange Pi file. All you got to do is kind of like just drag and drop, dump, calibrate a joystick. Go through all that. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool looking. All the games into one box. You know, you just got to do basic things, and it's really no different than what you have to do with emulators anyway. So I think people that probably bought this that were upset may not have a strong background in game emulation, because I've been emulating games since like 2000, and it's never been completely straightforward, like hooking up your original Nintendo, popping a cartridge in and having it work. You have to kind of do a little bit of calibrations and whatnot. Oh yeah. Why didn't the original version that we bought come like this? Gonna configure this RetroEngine controller. Okay, is this thing, I think this controller is broken. D-pad up, D-pad left, D-pad right, start. Come on. Dude, I think the start button's broken on this controller. What you might want to do with this is break out the Xbox 360 wired controller, because the controllers that came with it are pretty bad compared to this. This one works fine. Right now I have Batman on TurboGrafx 16 going. Also, what I noticed is right now only 22 of the 40 supposed emulators are available to me. So I think there's some additional configuration that has to happen to get full functionality. I never heard of this Batman game, but it's pretty bad. It's like Batman the Pac-Man version. And to be honest, about a day in, I was pretty upset about it. But I was determined to make it work because I've waited a year for this thing. I wasn't going to get to the end of the, like, swim across the ocean and then quit and turn back home. I was going to get this thing to work one way or the other. At one point, I was in this level of despair where I was going to try out the Kaka operating system, but I wanted to have that. I wanted the graphical user interface. So, and the Kaka does have a GUI, but it's more like the PSP kind of thing, and I wanted some flashy graphics. I mean, it wasn't going to be Hyperspin, it wasn't going to be Launchbox, but I wanted something. There's one more gotcha on this. So this wireless keyboard that has the mouse and keyboard, Logitech, I recommend this. A lot of you have this. It uses just one USB port, and the USB ports are kind of scarce. They're plug and play. You only have two, so you got to pull it in and out if you're playing two players. But when you're setting up the Wi-Fi, you have to use a wired keyboard, which I showed earlier. But once you get your Wi-Fi set up, I recommend one of these dual keyboards with the keyboard and mouse, just in case you need to go into that Linux environment. I hope you realize that you have to apply all your ROMs. It doesn't come with the ROMs aside from like the RetroPie and the ports. One other thing is I always have to unplug the power supply when I shut it down. There's no power button on here. At least I haven't found one. The other part is, like, I don't think people downloaded and printed the instructions, or at least viewed it on an iPad. There's a lot of instructions involved with this, and a lot of it you had to read. A lot of it, if you just re-imaged Retro Orange Pi onto the chip, you wouldn't have to follow all those directions. But it's a little confusing. There's like the main interface, and then there's this, it's not called emulation station, but it's, you go into this like Linux desktop mode. It's not straightforward, but no emulation is straightforward. Please wait, installing Retro Orange Pi 3.0, automatic install, resizing SD card, generating SSH keys, rebooting into Retro Orange Pi. Alright, so what a load of cow dump. I have a keyboard here, it's a wireless keyboard, but no. The wireless keyboard does nothing! Luckily, I tossed all my old crap, but luckily I got an old-fashioned Dell keyboard. It's all beat up, but it's wired. So hopefully this does the trick. We gotta type in the Wi-Fi password. Oh, it lit up. What do you know? Okay. I'm gonna type in the key. Alright, I think I covered enough for this video. If there's anything specific to the RetroEngine Sigma that you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. I'll put a link in the description to the Indiegogo campaign in case you're interested in getting this. Make sure this is going to be a hobby for you, not a plug-and-play system. I made that point pretty clear in this video. It's a little bit of effort involved. Make sure you like the effort. I'll be making a couple other RetroEngine Sigma videos, so keep an eye out on this channel for them. Thanks for watching, and thank you for watching Technuba.